December 1939. The winter war has raged for just 2 weeks, and Finland's defense is crumbling in Ladoga, Karelia. The massive superiority of the Red Army surges through the wilderness, threatening to open the road to the heart of Finland. In this comprehensive documentary, we examine second by second the Battle of Tolvajärvi, the moment when the Finns turned the tide and achieved their first major offensive victory. Before Tolvajärvi, the Finnish nation lived amidst fear and retreat. The enemy's tanks and artillery seemed invincible. However, on the freezing lake ice and in the snowy forests of Tolvajärvi, Finnish fighters proved the Red Army could be beaten. This battle was not just a military victory, but the salvation of a nation's morale. Next, we travel back to the dark early days of December 1939, when the crisis was at its peak. On November 30th, 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland. North of Lake Ladoga, the Soviet 139th Division crossed the border at Korpiselkägi. The enemy forces were heavily armed, equipped with dozens of tanks and modern artillery. Finland's small and poorly equipped border guard and cover units were forced to retreat before the overwhelming force, falling deeper into the Karelian forests. During the first week of December, the Finnish defense shattered time and again. The Red Army advanced faster than expected through trackless wilderness, utilizing a new road network. Finnish troops were exhausted, suffering from lack of sleep and intense frontline pressure. Despair began to spread through the headquarters as the enemy neared the vital crossroads of Tolvajärvi. At the headquarters in Mikkeli, Commander-in-Chief Gustav Mannerheim followed the situation with grave concern. If the defense of Ladoga Karelia collapsed, the enemy would outflank the main Finnish defensive line, the Mannerheim Line. Mannerheim made a swift and decisive move. He established Detachment Talvela to save the situation and placed his best offensive officer in command. Colonel Paavo Talvela was known for his unyielding nature and aggressive offensive tactics. Arriving at the front on December 5th, he encountered a chaotic scene. Soldiers were retreating and faith in victory was strained. Talvela immediately made it clear that the era of retreat was over. His very first order to the men was, "We retreat no longer, we attack." Talvela's primary striking force was Infantry Regiment 16, led by the legendary and fearless Lieutenant Colonel Aaro. Pajari's regiment consisted mainly of men from Hammarkärg and Tampere, well accustomed to forestry work and winter. Pajari was a leader who commanded his men directly from the front line, and his calm veins restored faith. On the evening of December 10th, a Red Army regiment made a secret flanking maneuver under the cover of a heavy blizzard. They managed to bypass the front line undetected and struck directly into the Finnish supply and artillery positions southwest of Tolvajärvi. The situation was extremely critical, as the defense was at risk of collapsing. The enemy soldiers had marched for days through deep snow without proper food and were starving. As they stumbled upon the Finnish tents, they encountered an irresistible aroma: hot, fatty sausage soup, freshly prepared in the field kitchens. Discipline broke, and large numbers of Red Army soldiers stopped to gorge on the Finnish rations. This hesitation by the enemy bought the Finns vital time. Lieutenant Colonel Aaro quickly gathered headquarters staff, supply troops, and any available men into a makeshift combat unit. The Finns struck directly at the Soviet soldiers, eating soup among the tents. A chaotic and bloody close-quarters battle erupted in the dark winter night. The fire from Finnish Suomi submachine guns was devastating among the surprised enemy ranks. By dawn, the Red Army regiment that had flanked the rear was completely routed, its remnants fleeing back into the woods, leaving behind hundreds of casualties. This unique clash went down in history as the Sausage War. Following the Sausage War, Pajari did not wait around, but decided to keep the initiative. The next night, December 11th, he personally led a small battalion assault directly toward the Tourist Inn located on the Tolvajärvi Ridge. The Tourist Inn had become the enemy's strongest stronghold and advanced defensive hub. The night assault on the Tourist Inn was extremely intense. The Finns advanced through a dark snowfall and breached the building. The battle was fought room by room, in corridors and stairwells, using hand grenades and knives. Pajari himself was in the thick of the fight until he suffered a severe heart attack from the stress. Although Pajari collapsed due to heart failure, he refused to leave his men until the situation was under control. The Finns managed to inflict massive casualties on the enemy and withdrew back to their own lines before morning. This guerrilla rage shattered the confidence of the Red Army officers. The nocturnal successes restored the regiment's self-confidence. Colonel Talvela and a recovering Pajari knew the enemy was shaken. The moment had come to execute the main objective of the entire operation: a massive, coordinated offensive across the ice of Tolvajärvi against the main enemy positions. The morning of December 12, 1939, dawned freezing cold. The great main offensive, planned by Colonel Talvela and Lieutenant Colonel Pajari, was ready to begin. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Finnish artillery fired a brief preparatory barrage into the Red Army positions. Afterwards, the soldiers of Infantry Regiment 16 rose from their cover and advanced. The Finnish battalions had to cross the narrow straits and open ice of Lake Tolvajärvi to reach the enemy lines. There was absolutely no cover on the ice. Red Army soldiers had fortified themselves high on the opposite shore and instantly opened a fierce machine gun fire. Bullets whipped the surface of the ice, throwing up white snow dust. The focus of the assault shifted toward Kotisaari and Hevasalo Islands within the lake. The Finns advanced in thinly scattered skirmish lines, rushing forward through deep snow and over the ice. The battle for the islands quickly turned into brutal close-quarters combat, using hand grenades, bayonets, and submachine guns among the snowy trees simultaneously. Another Finnish battalion assaulted directly from the direction of the Hevasalo road, toward the tourist inn standing on the ridge. The enemy defended this stone and concrete building stubbornly with heavy machine guns. The Finns had to slowly, bunker by bunker, clear their way up the slope of the ridge under intense fire. The Red Army deployed several tanks in a counterattack to support their infantry. The Finns had almost no tanks of their own or effective anti-tank guns, so the soldiers had to repel the steel monsters with close combat weapons. Brave men ran close to the tanks and destroyed them by throwing Molotov cocktails directly onto the engines. By afternoon, the relentless and aggressive pressure from the Finns began to pay off. The tourist inn was finally captured, and the main defensive line of the Soviet 139th Division shattered. When the Soviet troops realized that the Finns were flanking their rear through the islands, panic and chaos began to spread through their ranks. By 16 o'clock, the fierce battle was over. The enemy forces began a hasty and partially disorganized retreat eastward along the Korpiselkig road. They left behind massive amounts of equipment, fallen soldiers, and heavy machinery, which they had no time to recover as Finnish squads pressured their heels. The victory at Tolvajärvi was complete, but its price was heavy. The Finns lost over 100 men killed and hundreds wounded in the battle. However, the Red Army's casualties were many times higher, with over 1,000 soldiers fallen. The lake ice and snowy ridges were filled with the grim traces of war. Following the victory at Tolvajärvi, the Finns did not rest on their laurels. Detachment Talvela immediately launched a pursuit of the retreating remnants of the Soviet 139th Division toward the east. The goal was to prevent the enemy from reorganizing their defense. Finnish ski patrols harried the columns, striking day and night. The pursuit culminated about 20 kilometers to the east, in the village of Ägläjärvi, between December 18th and 23rd. The Soviet Union deployed a fresh elite division to halt the Finnish advance. Extremely brutal close-quarters combat was fought in the houses and snowy woods of Ägläjärvi, but the high Finnish morale broke this resistance too. In the wake of the battles of Tolvajärvi and Ägläjärvi, the Korpiselkig road was littered with abandoned Soviet military equipment. The poorly equipped Finnish army captured vital resupplies, dozens of artillery pieces, tanks, hundreds of trucks, field kitchens, and massive amounts of small arms and ammunition. The miracle of Tolvajärvi held immeasurable psychological importance. It was the first major offensive victory of the Winter War, proving to the Finns and the entire world that the heavy Soviet armored divisions were vulnerable. News of the victory spread rapidly through newspapers, boosting the morale of the nation. The Finnish headquarters utilized the victory by inviting foreign war correspondents to the scene. American, British, and French journalists arrived in the snowy wilderness and reported to the world on the incredible victory of the Finnish guerrillas against all odds. This fueled the international spirit of the Winter War phenomenon. After Ägläjärvi, the front line stabilized at the Etojoki River, roughly 30 kilometers behind the eastern border. The Finns settled into firm defensive positions, and the enemy's offensive capabilities on this sector were completely paralyzed. The lines held honorably until March 13, 1940, when the peace treaty took effect. This was the story of the miracle of Tolvajärvi, the first great victory of the Winter War, where Finnish, sisu, pocket tactics, and Aaro Pajari made the impossible possible. Thank you for watching this comprehensive documentary. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Which part of the battle impressed you the most? Respect to our veterans.